Hello, welcome to Olio, my show. My name is Susan Rushton, and as always, before we go any further, I need to explain what Olio means. One definition is that Olio is what comes in, one definition is that Olio is short by olla podrida, which is Spanish for rotten bowl or rotten pot, which I just get such a kick out of. And it has essentially everything in the world in it. Pork in all its iterations, bacon, pig's feet, sausage, and chicken, chickpeas, what else? Cabbage, carrots, beans, pig's ears, onions, garlic, essentially everything in the world in it except sunflower seeds and kale. That's one definition. Another definition is that Olio is what comes in between the acts of a melodrama. So you might have somebody singing, you might have somebody doing a juggling act, you might have somebody doing a skit. But none of it has anything to do with anything else, and none of it has anything to do with the melodrama. So in other words, it's apples, oranges, and a monkey wrench. So welcome to my monkey wrench. And I have made my guest chuckle, and I'm tickled. My guest today is a person with whom I have something seriously in common. We both have columns in the Auburn Journal, and this is Norris Burkes. Welcome, Norris.
Thank you.
And he is a chaplain, or perhaps retired chaplain, or current chaplain.
Well,
both.
I'm currently working as a per diem chaplain at Hospice of the Foothills in Grass Valley. So
Thank you. Hospice of the Foothills.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can contact him at norris@thechaplain.net, chaplain.net, or go online for a lot of information about him. And at thechaplain.net, the chaplain.net. So that's all the basic contact information. Now we get to learn about you. So how long have you been a chaplain, sir?
I began chaplaincy in 1991 when I was a pastor in Stockton, California. And I was going to and we had a mass casualty shooting you may remember, in Stockton, where Patrick Purdy hit a machine gun elementary school. And 6 children died and 30 wounded.
And hundreds of others were.
And I went to that scene and for a couple of days got depressed for about a year, and learned that there was recovery in a training program called Clinical Pastoral Education at UC Davis, and that is when I became a chaplain out of the fire.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the same time, I was an Air Force chaplain. I was a reservist, so I was actually already a chaplain. But I mean, as a healthcare chaplain, I would say, 1990. So,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a chaplain? What does one need to do?
Well, as one of my colleagues said, more than you have, sir. No, no, that's a joke. So chaplain is one of those terms that's thrown around. It can, I say, sometimes it takes more than just to buy the jacket. Sometimes a local pastor will walk to the sheriff's station and say, "Can I volunteer to be your chaplain?" And so they get a little training and they put on a jacket and go. Or sometimes my church runs a disaster relief for California, and we have chaplains that we train. But again, those are volunteers, and so a chaplain, or is that a professional chaplain? I like to call it a career chaplain because professional sounds a little highfalutin, but to become a career chaplain,
that you're not being paid.
Yeah. A career chaplain has all the makings of most denominational pastors. They have college and seminary, But in addition to that, we have some experience in the pastorate, and then finally, we have to go through 1 year of full-time clinical pastoral education. For your viewers, I'd like them to understand that real quickly.
Yes, please.
It's clinical pastoral education is a full-time internship. It's 40 hours. You're on the hospital floor, but half of those 40 hours are spent in, best described to viewers, I think, as group counseling. So if I go see a patient, I come back to a room full of chaplains and we talk about it. And somebody says, well, how did that remind you of your mother? And I want to know my mother. Oh, we start crying. So it's a little group counseling combined with...
Group counseling of your...
peer counseling, peer counseling, I should say. So, as I said before, so there was a lot for me to work out when I came to UC Davis, having been in that schoolyard shooting, and then we had another mass casualty happen while I was at UC Davis. Some of you remember it as the Good Guys shooting in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. So named after the electronics store, not after the shooters. So anyway, so that 1 year training is how you become a chaplain, and then you're reviewed by your peers, and you're certified as a as I like to say, are you a certified chaplain, or are you just certifiable? Well, I mean, some chaplains haven't yet been certified, and so we like to say, well, you're certifiable, right? Meaning, have you gone to the training and everything, but you haven't yet been certified. So that's how you become a professional or a clinical chaplain. So, and so
you help. At the moment, you are helping at hospice, people who are dying and their families.
Yes.
But you are also have been a children's
pediatric chaplain. Right.
Chaplain.
I left Sutter Memorial Hospital in 2008 to deploy to Iraq. But for about 8 years, I was a clinical pediatric chaplain. So a very different kind of chaplaincy, because you first have to win the child, mm-hmm. and then you may not win the parents. So then you're still kind of So the child might like having you, but the parents are like, we don't want any religion in this room, and so you may. It's a little different because you have to win both.
But is it necessarily religious?
No, not at all. A lot of folks will say that. I've entered many a room to say, "Well, I don't need a chaplain. We are not religious." I had one 80-year-old man say to me, "Get out of here! I don't believe in chaplains." And I'm like, "Well, I'm here. I don't know." I started kind of messing with him a little bit until he finally invited me to sit down. And so we always, a clinically trained chaplain will tell patients, "Look, as I've said many times, it is not about who I am, it's about who you are." So as a chaplain, in my role as a chaplain, I have taped crystals to wrists. I've turned the bed in the feng shui direction. I've put garlic under the bed. I've collected bones to be burned and placentas to be buried. I have taken off my shoes, disconnected the smoke detector, burned incense, and read from the Quran.
He said this before.
And on Sunday, I'm a Baptist. On Sunday,
This is something that you have to tell people.
Right.
Feel the need to tell people.
I need them to know that it doesn't matter who I am. What do you need today, Susan? You're sick, you're ill. What do you need today?
Okay.
Let me give you an example, if I may.
Please.
I have a good friend of mine, Gerald Jones. He's the head of chaplaincy at Sutter in Roseville. Gerald is a Latter-day Saint, a Mormon. Mm-hmm. I grew up Southern Baptist. Mm-hmm. Mormons, Southern Baptists, get away from me. Get away from me. Yeah. But because Gerald and I have been trained in the same thinking, if I was in the hospital, I would want Gerald to come to me, because he wouldn't bring me a Book of Mormon. He knows that would be offensive to me. Or, well, I don't mean
maybe
offensive,
not,
he would not.
Also, you would understand why he would bring that to you.
No, I wouldn't. Our training says that the patient matters. So he would bring me a Bible or he would
Because
connect me with my Baptist church,
Uh-huh.
but he wouldn't come in and say, I don't know if you've discovered all the truth. Here it is.
He's not there to proselytize.
No, he's not. So it's very
and neither
different.
are you.
Right, and neither am I. So it doesn't matter what I am. I'm trying to get at what you need in the hospital. Whether you need literally a feather. I mean, I brought a glass of water to one of my last patients I saw. I brought a glass of water. She was a shaman, and she spit it on her husband's wound, to which I checked first with the nurse to make sure. Yeah, chaplain, it's closed wound, but whatever she needs. She thought it was little. But I mean, that's what she needed. And so I may tell my chaplains that I may have a little laugh back in the office, but it doesn't matter what I am. It matters what they are and what helps them. And if that helped that lady, which I know it did, because she was Southeast Asian. She was already feeling in healthcare. You may have seen the book when it was on fire, when I lay down on it. It's all about a Modesto hospital, and they're reaching out to Southeast Asia. So she was already suspicious of her hospital, and I brought her water, and I know it made her feel better.
Yeah.
So.
And she knew that you knew that what she was going to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
and you brought it to her anyway.
Right. I have to check those things with the staff first.
Sure.
But yeah. When I disconnected that smoke detector, that was back in, 1994. But I'd have been in a lot of trouble for that today.
Why did you disconnect it?
Because we were burning incense. Because we were burning incense, and I didn't want the So yeah.
So I have a problem with the word selfish because I consider myself a very selfish person. I wouldn't be doing this if I weren't selfish because I want to do it. I love it. You sound like a person who is aiming to be educated, aching to be educated, enthusiastically searching. I value what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, people ask me all the time, well, don't you have to know all the religions? Don't you have to understand them all? No, can I demonstrate what you need to understand?
Yes.
If I may say.
Yes.
Pretend you're one of my hospice patients and you're dying. Susan, tell me what is valuable to you in your spirituality, in your training. What gives you value? What helps you? See, I don't.
Community.
See.
And being touched.
Right.
Yes.
See.
Yes.
And by the way, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. I actually do ask before I touch patients, but here's the. So in that way, I've written newspaper columns about you too can be a chaplain if you learn how to just say, tell me. Yeah. Educate me about what I can do for you in this moment. And so when I asked that to a Muslim man in Iraq whose son lay on one of our hospital beds dying of third-degree burns, when I asked him through a translator, what can I do? He asked me to get a Quran. And I went back to my office and found a Quran and researched a minute how to present it. Now, this may shock many of my Baptist friends, but I took the Quran and I kissed it and I placed it on the boy's forehead. But this was just after I read from a passage, because I researched. The internet's good. Just research. What is the equivalent to Psalm 23 to the Muslim?
Good.
And I found the scripture passage.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what is an equivalent kind of meaning?
Yeah.
And so I read that. And again, on Sunday, I'm a Baptist. I mean, it means it doesn't matter what I am. And I've had even fellow chaplains. I had one military chaplain. How could you do that? I said, I'm not kissing it. It's their kiss that for them. It's not my kiss.
Yeah.
that's how I can do it. Even sometimes my own wife asks me, how do you do those things?
Wow.
So she grew up a Baptist minister's daughter. But
you do it because you're a chaplain.
I do it because that helps them, and that's what I would want. So anyway, you talk about being selfish, and I feel like I'm a writer too. So
therefore, we're both selfish.
That's my selfish moment. When I can tell stories, and when I can speak to groups and things like that's how.
Yes. So okay, now you just happened to mention that you're a writer.
Yes.
I've mentioned it before, and you happened to bring at least one book of yours.
Yes.
Because I asked him to.
Yes.
Would you hold up your latest one? Now this is "Thriving Beyond Surviving" by Norris Burkes, and this is your third book. Now are these columns?
So, for the most part, they are.
Okay.
This particular book is well laid out in that I made bold print every time a column begins. So you could open this book right now, Susan, and just start reading it anywhere when you find the bold print. So there's a bold print, and there's where a column starts. So,
next month, my wife and I will take a huge step.
Yes.
We are going homeless, but don't worry, I won't be on the street corner waving a sign. We'll preach for food. Okay. Okay.
So I did that just for my readers. They wanted to read the column, and so at a little better format, easier format. So it's fun. I wrote about my experience in Iraq. It's called Heroes Highway, and it's an entire book about working in the hospital in Iraq. And I came home, and those newspaper columns I wrote from Iraq in 2009. Turned into my thesis for my master's in creative nonfiction. So,
you wrote a master's degree. From what university?
From Pacific University in Portland area.
Okay.
So it was a low residency program. I flew up there 4 weeks out of the year.
Great.
So,
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was fun. Yeah, so
fun and a lot of work.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Why do you write a column?
That best describes how did I start. So I was.
How did you start?
Yeah, so I was in 2001 in the summer. I went Boy Scout camping with one of the fathers happened to be the editor of the local newspaper, Florida Today, and I started telling these stories. Like we're telling them, probably some of the same ones, and he said, "Gee, he said, have you ever written a column?" And
that sounds like a newspaper. Man.
Like, what's that? I didn't even read columns, Susan. I read Herb Kahn, is that how you say his name? Herb Caen years ago. So, but I didn't.
Which is a different kind of thing.
So I wrote up some of my stories. I told my wife, I said, well, I want to write a book someday, so I'll start writing up the stories. And so I wrote the stories. I handed it to him and didn't hear from him because 9/11 happened. Mm-hmm. And newspapers, you can imagine. So but 2 weeks later, he called me. He said, I need a spiritual response to 9/11. Oh yeah, let me write that up real quick. So I wrote a column, and then the next week he goes, where's my next one? I didn't know there was going to be a next one. And so it started. 7 months later, it's syndicated now. It's in 35 papers around the country. And so, yeah.
What does that mean, syndicated?
Well, it just means it's in several newspapers. My biggest paper is Charleston, South Carolina, and it's got a couple papers in Florida. And
so you send them a bunch?
I send them the same column every week.
Okay.
So that newspaper column, just goes to.
Is this voluntary? Do you get paid?
No,
for this?
I get paid. I get paid just a little bit from each newspaper, but a little bit from each makes up about a half-time income. So. Yeah.
What do you look for in your writing?
What do I look for in my writing?
Yes.
It's called spirituality in everyday life, because I don't believe if God doesn't work in everyday life, then you don't need to go to church. There's nothing else you need to do. If it doesn't work now, if it doesn't work here in this place. And so I look for just everyday experiences. And I used to wear a shirt, so be careful what you say, you'll wind up in my column, so because it is really kind of true when I have everyday experiences. And so I just look for some, like, I always give the example because this is, like one time I wrote a column when my son was 13, he fell off a skateboard. And he came in the room and he's, really banged up. And I sat him on my knee at 13 years old and he cried. Mm-hmm. And I wrote about, that is probably the last time I'll see my son cry.
I doubt
probably
it.
the last time he was pretty close. Yeah.
Has he had children yet?
No.
Well, then.
No, but he went through the Marines, so that really made him cry proof. So yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Was he aware that you wrote about him when he cried?
So in my first book, yeah, he did say that, and I wrote a column about it. He did say he wanted a cut of my book because I was in his book. So yeah, he was aware. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Okay.
So everyday life, just stuff. I'll be at a dinner table, or I'll hear something that someone will say, and it'll hit me differently, and so I'll write a column about it.
So it sounds like you just have your ears. Yeah. Eyes and ears open and your heart open. Yeah. And that sounds familiar.
I stayed with this family once while I was speaking in their city, and I got to know I loved their dog, but their dog hated me. Oh. What a great column. The dog that hates me. And I poured all my love to this dog, and he hates me. Oh. He doesn't come around
but me. You love him anyway.
Yeah, I tried to, and he never would let me hold him. He never would let me cuddle with him. He's such a cute little dog. And so, yeah.
But he did tolerate
you. Right. He tolerated me.
Just wasn't interested in being close to you.
Right. So it makes a good column on spirituality and how we...
You could have kicked him, but you didn't.
Right. But how we deal with people sometimes who don't really want to love us back. And so, yeah.
I want to share something with all of us. Mm-hmm. And I've shared it with you. Mm-hmm. I knew a woman who was a children's nurse for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she got used to nursing children and really good at it. And she knew what she was doing and knew how to make children feel good. And then she was transferred and put in with nursing adults. And she was really, really nervous. So what am I going to do? I don't know anything about nursing adults. But it turns out she did. Because when we're sick or hurt or sad,
we're little kids, aren't we?
We're children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I had an operation, the anesthesiologist treated me like a grown-up. Yes. And the doctor treated me like a grown-up. And the nurse came to me and said, "How you doing, darling?"
Right.
She was the only one who touched me.
Right.
The only one who looked at me not as a grown-up. And I can imagine, well, am I wrong? Mm-hmm. You work with children and you work with adults. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there that much difference?
Well, like I said earlier, just the difference in how you, particularly there's a team, you have to appeal to the family team, but as far as, I see your analogy. And again, that's a great column, see, so you can that's a great column. I mean, just how people want to be touched and spiritually and emotionally and they want things simply explained. They don't want, and they don't want to feel like they're stupid, so.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think all people enjoy some playfulness that I employed with children. With children, I always had a funny tie, whether it was Charlie Brown or whether it was some just hysterically big Garfield the cat, So, and that was just my way of being playful with them. So
yeah. And did it work?
Oh yeah. It did. It did work. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So good. And some of the doctors, when I left the hospital, I gave several of my ties to a few of the doctors. Try this. Yeah. So
you used to live in Stockton.
Yes.
Now you live in Auburn.
Well, I moved to Elk Grove, and that's where I was really. I went off for a period of time for 8 years active duty. I was in Izmir, Turkey, and for 2 years. I was in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and I was at...
a Marine?
No,
Excuse me.
no, that's right.
I beg your
I was an Air
pardon.
Force. I was an Air Force
Okay.
chaplain, and all these. So, by the way, I tell people Air Force chaplains are pretty much just like pastors. We have a congregation. We do vacation Bible school. We do all the things pastors. But I started out at Moffett Field there and then went to Turkey, Izmir, Turkey, and then went to. I was the chaplain at Cape Canaveral for all the launches. So every time a launch went off, I was the guy with a prayer, written prayer on the launch panels. I'd bring them around just like you see on TV, those launch panels. Well, imagine some guy walking around. Hey, would you like a prayer today? Would you like a prayer? And these prayers were always very non-sectarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but now you're in Auburn.
I am. Yeah.
And how long have you been here?
We moved here 3 years ago after an unsuccessful attempt to put my wife on the road. I wanted to go all over the world for some years. We sold our home, and that's what you started it. I was homeless. We sold our home, and we lived in Europe for 4 months, and we lived in Honduras for 3 months, and so you just wanted to, and then we decided to come up here for a vacation rental up at Lake of the Pines, and we ended up living next door to a realtor, and my wife's like, "Could you show us the house?"
Honey!
So I've been married for 40 years, and
Okay.
she is the love of my life, and Becky still. We are a team. So
Good.
Yeah.
And you listen to each other. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's a school teacher, and people always ask me. You ask me what my subject. She's sometimes the subject of my column.
Yes.
So she picks it up. She goes, "What did I say this week?"
Yeah.
So people say to me, "Don't." She tells me, "Don't tell people I'm funny, because then they look at me and they expect me to be funny." I said, "Well, you're funny. Then we're funny together."
Yeah.
So we have a good time. Yeah.
So where does she teach?
She's retired too. She retired from Elk Grove School District. So
Okay.
we both retired at 60 years old and got to
Okay.
travel a little bit. So.
And you live in Auburn and not Lake of the Pines?
We live in Lake of the Pines.
Okay.
Yeah, we live in Lake of the Pines now. So yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things I'm involved in, if I can just pitch and it is sort of a pitch, yeah. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, Sarah, she lives in Honduras, where she starts libraries in elementary schools. So we send Spanish books to her. She gets them. She gets them from the Scholastic and book clubs and things, and they send all these books to her.
Yeah.
And she started her project called the Chispa Project. And I don't know if you know a little Spanish. Chispa means spark. CHISPA.
ISP is in Paul.
Chispaproject.org. And we take volunteers, and I have taken every year. I take a group of volunteers down there, and because of what we did, I wrote about this every year. The Will Rogers, I'm not sure if it's the foundation, Will Rogers Foundation, gave me a humanitarian award for the work they give a writing award. So my column got the award, but it was for what we did for the Chispa Project. So yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, come with me to Honduras. Yeah.
Or just donate books.
Yes. No. It's
okay.
It's just
you get
this
books.
is one of those things where it's just much easier to donate the money. So
donate the money. You'll buy the books. She'll buy the books, but they get them from
this year. During this pandemic year, my column raised $50,000 for Chispa.
Wow,
it was huge. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So that's Chispa. Chispa project.org. CHISPA project.org to help kids in where? Honduras.
And libraries.
To get books.
So I'm looking for librarians to come back with me.
Yes,
so they're always the most excited people to get there.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
I knew I was right to get you in
Thank
here.
you.
All right. I've been talking to Norris Burkes. Norris Burkes and you can contact him at norris@thechaplain.net or investigatethechaplain.net and have a good time. And Norris, it's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you.
Right.
And thank you for watching.